Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my shop. Today we're going to do about a 7,000 mile, year and a half review on the rebuilt 235 engine I put in this 49 Chevrolet and some of the modifications I've done to it since. So stay tuned and let's talk about it. In the spring of 2014, I came to the sad conclusion that the 216, the original 216 that came in this 49 Chevy, was tired, and if I wanted to keep it to where I could rebuild it, I'd better pull it now. So I went off and I went on a search for either a 235 or a 261 engine to replace it. I found several viable candidates here locally, but they were real proud of them. And during this process, I frequented this stove bolt forum, and I met some folks and got to talking with a fellow up in Maysville, Ohio, that had a 235 that he was willing to get rid of real cheap because the #1 cylinder was dead. So we talked, made a deal, and I ran all the way up there and picked it up and brung it back. So I made the trip up there, picked it up, brung it back down, built a homemade run stand out of some 2x10s and 2x8s and 2x4s, and verified that's right, #1 cylinder was dead. So I stripped it down, had machine work done, and I decided to rebuild it because the rest, once I stripped the engine down, I determined that really it was just the piston that had a hole blown in it was the only problem. The cylinder wasn't damaged, and none of the rest of the engine was damaged, so it was rebuildable. So I went ahead and rebuilt it. And if you watch in the prelude to my videos on this 3100, you'll see kind of the process of that particular engine that I rebuilt, which is this one right here. All right, so after getting the engine here and getting the block and the head sent off to the machine shop, the crank and the flywheel also sent off to have them trued up. It was bored 60 thousandths over, and which makes it a 244 cubic inch. And I decided that I would hop it up some. Instead of going back purely stock, I was going to try to squeeze as much performance out of it as I can. So I put a hot cam in it. One of the best cams you can put in a 235 is a stock 261 cam, and that's what the specs of that particular cam is what they put in the 53 and 54 Corvette Blue Flame 235 engines, which got them pumping out about 150 horsepower. Well, this cam here is a little hotter than that. It's got higher lift and longer duration, and it's actually called a 3/4 race cam, a 264 3/4 race cam, or a Bulldog 3/4 race cam. But anyway, that's the cam I put in, and it's got the solid lifters. And I broke it in with the single Rochester carburetor, but I decided I could tell it was under carbureted. I needed more carburation. So I went to duals, and I first tried to go with dual Rochesters, and I just couldn't get them to work right. So I went with these Carter Weber 3232 progressive 2-barrel carburetors, and it's been performing great. I have no negative reports to give on this carburation
combination that I've got on this 235.
All right, so I had the engine rebuilt, sitting on the stand, ready to go. Got into other projects, and you know, life getting in the way, and it languished on there for about 3 to 4 years before I decided in 2019 that I was going to go ahead and do the swap. Okay, I'm going to start here on the right side first, and one of the first things that may jump out at you is this, the draft tube looks a little unusual, and that is a PCV modification I done to it. And it's been so beneficial to have a PCV valve in this truck that it's I can't help but believe it's been a performance enhancer to it. Now what I did was, this is the draft tube that was actually off the 216 engine, and I cut off the down tube part of it, and I've got a rubber grommet, the PCV valve, and the hose wrapping around, going to the teeing into the vacuum line with the vacuum wipers that I am still running, the vacuum wipers. And here you can see the line circling around, coming down, teeing in right here, okay? And then that's the line going to the wipers. And that PCV valve is of the correct size to where my wipers do work. They work as good with that PCV teed into it as it did before. If you have a PCV valve that's too big, it'll suck too much vacuum and not allow enough for the wipers. Well, this works good. I'll post in the description the part numbers of the grommet and the PCV valve itself. So some people, they really do a real clean job. Some people will actually mount the valve all the way down in the block and not use the draft tube baffled part to mount it. I determined that I think it would be more prone to keep oil out of the PCV if it utilizes the baffling that's internal to that road draft tube, and I turn it up. That way I'm only getting the internal bypass combustion process gases and no oil. So anyway, that's number one. That fuel pump was on the 216. I bought it new when I got the 216 running, and it's been problem free since I got the thing running in, oh gosh, 2012 maybe. And I haven't had a lick of trouble out of it, knock on wood. And I just decided I would run with it as opposed to the good fuel pump that came on this, because I wanted that bowl and I wanted that additional screen filtering there. So anyway, that's a 6 volt, the 6 volt starter that was also on the 216. The reason why I took it off the 216 and put it on here is because that was a new starter that I had to put on the 216 when I got it running. The old starter was bad, and so I replaced it, and I decided I would put, since it was fairly new, I would put it on this 235. It's a 6 volt starter and it works fine. All right. That's a 6 volt horn relay and horn that is original to the truck, and it also works on the 12 volt upgraded system here. Now, even though I've done this mod a little later, I'll go ahead and get into this one. And this is a Pertronix Flame Thrower 2 distributor. Now, it has the Ignitor II electronic ignition module in it, and the cap and the rotor button are stock GM Chevrolet part numbers for replacement. And I did have to go with these HEI plug wires. If you go with this, it was brand new, released for the 216, 235, and 261 stove bolt series of engines. And I actually did a review on this. You can look back in some of my archives. I think I'll go ahead and put a link to it. But when I originally installed it. Now I've got, I'm going to think I've got probably about 4,000 miles on this setup, and it's also a Flame Thrower 2 high voltage coil there that they provided also, and trouble free so far, knock on wood. and it's I mean it's I had really no problems with the point distributor that I had in here, but they approached me wanting a test bed to see how it would work, and this review, like I said, 4,000 miles later, it is doing great. I have no problems. Now, the springs on the flyweights, on the mechanical advanced flyweights, now I played around with them, and I've got it all using the copper springs, which are the, well, for lack of a better word, the weakest springs. They allow the flyweights to advance sooner and faster than the stock springs that came in it. And because this engine is hopped up, I got it matched perfectly with the timing. I'm running, I have to check my records. I'm going to say 12 degrees advanced at idle. It may be 8 though, so it'll pop up here, the correct advanced setting, the timing advanced setting at idle. But I've got it tuned great. It runs it pulls strong all the way up to 4,000 RPM. And at 4,000 RPM, my speedometer is bouncing on the at max at the 80 mile per hour, and it's got more to it. But every time I run it up that fast, it causes problems with the speedometer till I pull the cable out of the back of it and shoot all kinds of silicone spray up in it to quiet it down. So I don't run it that hard, but it is capable of doing it. Let me see, I've got an overflow tube here for the radiator, and in the 7,000 miles I've been running this engine now since I put it in, I have yet to have to add antifreeze. You top one of these radiators off plumb to the top, it's going to spit it out till it gets about level with the midway of this radiator hose, and that's where it's happy. Now what happens is, when it spits it out, if you don't have a reservoir to catch it, it's just spitting it out on the ground and it's gone forever. With the reservoir, it spits it out, and once it cools, vacuum, it sucks it back in, and it keeps it topped up. So like I said, in 7,000 miles, I have not had to add any antifreeze to this engine. And let's see, any other modifications on this side. Oh, let me point out, some of you may be new, and I'm going to light it up down there. Maybe not directly. If you see the numbers down there, that is where you find the serial number of your engine. Right down here. Well, that's too bright, isn't it? Let me see if I can get close. There you go. See those serial number, and that will tell you what type engine you have, the year of it, and more, and basically what it was for a car or a truck. So anyway, that's where those numbers reside. And let's see, this is the solid lifter truck engine. And another good thing, this is a 54 235 engine. So the water pump here sits at the exact same level that the 216 water pump did. So that fan is perfectly centered on that radiator, just like the 216 was. When you go with newer 235s, let's say I guess it's like maybe 55 and up, or maybe 56 and up. So they redesigned the water pump and how it bolts to the block, and I believe it sits higher. And there are some people say they don't have any problems running with the fan higher, and a lot of other people will tell you that their engines run hot. Well, there's a fellow on and I'll post his name up in the description. He's on eBay, and he sells an adapter plate that'll relocate the stock correct water pump for your later model 235 and move it down to where it will center on the radiator better. So anyway, and let's see, eventually, if I ever change out my air cleaners, right now this is a vented oil fill cap, and that's how the air is sucked in to the engine and pulled out by the PCV valve. And eventually, if I ever change out my air cleaners to something bigger, I'll close this up and take the tube over to the air cleaners to where it's pulling in filtered air. But I don't really go on any dirt roads or anything like that, so that's not been an issue. All right, here I guess I'll talk about the stuff that's jumping right out at you. Yeah, it's a little busier on this side. This is the driver's side, or left side. Number one, there's the alternator. This is the bypass oil filter, and it was stock on the 216 that was in this truck. After I broke this engine in, I installed it, and I've been running it now for probably about 3,000 miles. As you can see, I got two carburetors sitting on this dude, and we'll shine a light down there. You can see there's dual exhaust. Okay, this is a Fenton dual intake manifold and Fenton dual exhaust manifolds, what they call cast headers. And if you see these copper tubes right here, here, and here, they are there to try to get some heat off the exhaust up underneath the plenum that runs the length of this intake manifold, to heat that manifold up to get that ice cold gas to atomize quicker, to get the engine warmed up better. Now, it doesn't really work that good. The stock single barrel, single exhaust setup was the best design they ever come up with, and this falls way short of that. The engine does eventually warm up, but it does not warm up as fast as the stock does. Now, I bought these carburetors from Tom Langdon Stove Bolt Parts online, and he specifically says it's better to route hot water from the engine through that plenum down there underneath the intake manifold to preheat it than it is the exhaust gas. Now, I thought about it, and I just decided to go with the gas. A lot of people run the hot water, and a lot of people run without anything, and everybody swears that their way is a good way. Well, I don't like to swear, so I won't swear, but I will say I am happy and satisfied with my setup. It takes a couple minutes for this thing to warm up, even on a hot summer day when you first start it, but that's all right. I start it, I kick it down off fast idle to medium idle, and I let it warm up that way while I load up what I'm going to haul or close up gates, do whatever I need to do. And by the time I'm ready to roll, it's good. And once I get down the road a couple miles, it's already warmed up enough to run fine. So I don't have a problem with it. But I just wanted to point out that the provider of these carburetors and a lot of technical expertise does recommend to run plumb your hot water through that instead of gas. So anyway, I thought that going with a Fenton exhaust and Fenton intake manifold, they would bolt up better. But look here, I had to modify some of the clamps to hold them up, so they aren't exactly perfect. They're a little offset. And let me see if I can find it. I had to actually make an L brackets to adapt it, and I can't see it back there. But anyway, it just didn't work as good as I thought, but it's okay. It works great. It's just not as good. All right. Now these are Carter Weber progressive 2-barrel carburetors. Progressive being they work off of the secondaries, actually work off the primary via mechanical linkage, not vacuum. It does not utilize vacuum to operate the secondaries. Let me pull this off and I'll give you a shot. See, those aren't real big at all, are they? One of these carburetors is not big enough to run this engine. Now, I'm told the 3236 is, where you got that a lot bigger secondary, but a 3232 is not good enough, and twin 3232s are great. They work with this engine fine. It is not all over carbureted. It does not bog. It does not miss. It does not, I can't think of any negative II running these twin carburetors. They just work great. It took a while to get them tuned up right, but once I got them tuned, they work fine. And I've got a single fuel filter between the pump and here, because with these more modern carbs, you definitely want to have your fuel filtered fine. They've got electric chokes, automatic chokes, and if you watch here, I haven't even done anything with this engine yet, and you see them close. I closed them up and sets them up to high idle cam. I'm not going to start it yet, but so it's actually got there's 3 idle speeds on this. On the very first start, when it's ice cold, it's the high idle. You kick it down once, within 15 seconds or so of starting, it'll go to the medium speed, and it'll hold there till you kick it down to idle and it warms up. These chokes are not adjustable, so whenever they go bad, I guess I'll have to find a source to replace them. The good news is these actually were OEM'd to Ford for, I believe, the Pinto and the Ford Escort 4-cylinder engines. So, and it was the model 740, the Ford model 740. So some flaps may even carry these repair parts. But like I say, in 7,000 miles and a year and a half, knock on wood, I have not had any carburation problems at all out of this setup. And the custom linkage, and the air cleaners and the carburetors I got from Tom Langdon, and the adapters, the manifold adapters, because these manifolds were designed originally for the spacing of a 235 Rochester or Carter single barrel carburetor. So they do have those adapters going in, and it, like I say, no problems so far, knock on wood. All right. Now, I did run into an issue here with my shifter linkage, and I had to do a little bending to clear the intake manifold down at that end, and so that was an issue there I had to come up with. But like I say, I bend and I had to relocate. I believe this is the second and third shifter linkage there, and I believe this other one's reverse and first. I may have that backwards, hard to say, but I had to move it back, move it down a hair from here to here, and then bend the arm. So far, so good. All right, so it's like I say, it's been really good, and I have no complaints on it. So I guess I'll start him up for you. I want to point out another thing. This is the vacuum advance going to the distributor. I'm using ported vacuum like OEM, like stock does. You know, some people believe in going with full manifold vacuum and setting your idle and timing off that way. I'm old school. I like the ported vacuum and just introduce vacuum advance when the engine is accelerating forward. So I've got here, and it's tapped off here. In other words, I tried it with both of them on it, and it just didn't seem to be responding the way I wanted to. So I went to just one tap and plugged the other, and it works great that way. So if you're running dual carburetors, I recommend that you go with the vacuum advance off just one carburetor and not teeing it both of them together. All right. Now I'm going to start him up. And let's see. I've already pumped it once to set it. I'm going to pump it one. I like to pump it twice to on when it's cold and hadn't started in a couple days. So here we go. Two more times. Ignition. You can see it started at fast idle. I let it idle about 10 seconds or so, then I kicked it down. Now it's at the medium idle, and that's where I'll normally let it warm up before I'll kick it down to regular idle. Matter of fact, it won't kick down to regular idle until it warms up more. Opened up the door so we can let the exhaust out, because it will take a little while for it to warm up. Now it's possible, of course, now the water isn't hot either, so it wouldn't be circulating hot water through that intake manifold now either. So that wouldn't aid in getting this thing warmed up. It may be a little faster, but I don't know. See, that copper pipe is already hot to the touch, so some hot gases are getting up in there. Now you can see where the idle has changed a little bit. It's picked up some. It may be ready to be kicked down, so let's see. And it's not, so it's still needing to warm up some more, and that's fine. Normally now I'd pull it out while it's warming up. I'd be shutting my shop, closing the gates and everything. You know, once the engine's warmed up and you shut it down and you go somewhere for about an hour and come back, it won't take long at all for it to warm up. Okay, I've turned the gauge, the lights on the gauges so you can see. You can see the temperature hadn't moved actually hardly at all, so it's still cold. Got about a half tank of gas. It's already back to zero, so it's already charged back from the starting and it's running off the alternator. You can see I'm pegged out at 30 plus PSI. Now I did a gauge with it when I was spinning it up with a drill and I got to 36 PSI. I think it's probably higher than that when it's got more RPM, but I've not put a gauge on it since I hooked it up to this one that maxes out at 30. Here you can see the tach is reading about 1200 RPM. That's about where he's sitting. And now the tach, I've got it's on a base that's a magnet. I didn't want to drill any holes in this dash. This dash is in perfect condition, so I wasn't putting no more holes in it. So it's actually attached via a magnet. See, I can actually move it around if I wanted to. And the magnet holds it real good, except for when the wire gets behind it. There we go. There. All right. So, like I said, I have no problems with it. Let's see if it'll kick down now. And there you go. So you can see it didn't take that long. That was the actual time. I didn't do any cutting or anything. So actually it's still idling a little high. Where is it at? Let's see where it's at here on the RPM. About 900. So it's not totally, but you can see where, I mean, it's really only got 2 steps, high and middle, and then it's off, and then it's on the regular screw adjustment for idle. So anyway. And you can tell, well, it's hard to tell, I guess. My light's flashing. Them valves aren't loud at all. See, I haven't had to do anything with them yet. And so far, I've been very happy with that Pertronix distributor down there. But anyway. But you hear what it sounds like. I like that dual exhaust. All right, I realized I didn't identify the plugs are AC Delco R45s, And I've also run Autolites equivalents, which I can't think of offhand. I'll print it up here. But they were real good too. But I've not had any issues with the plugs. I check the plugs when I do the oil changes at 3,000 miles to see how they're burning, and they're burning about as perfect as you'd want them. And there's indicators on the electrode on the ground strap that comes from the body of the plug that goes over top of the electrode where it arcs to. There's indicators on that to tell you whether or not your timing is advanced too much or retarded too much, or if it's right on. And the last check I did, the timing was right on, and it is 12 degrees before top dead center at between 600 and 650 RPM. This cam is it's not a thumper cam, but it will not idle smooth at 400 to 500 RPM. 450 to 550. It will not idle smooth at all. Some people like that little low, but I don't. I want it smooth, so I idle it up around 600, 650 in idle, and it doesn't get hot, and it's as smooth as I can actually get it smoother at 7, but 6 to 650 is the slowest that I take it. And the timing, 12 degrees before top dead center. And I believe the max mechanical is around maybe 28, somewhere around in there. It's not as much as the as 35. 35 was too much. It just the valves clanked when I ran it that high. So I'm at a heavy medium. This is a combination of using road test settings, vacuum settings, and max mechanical advanced settings. So at a happy medium, and I kept records each way I went. And when I set the idle at between 600 and 650 RPM and the timing at 12 degrees before top dead center, that's exactly where this thing likes to run. Starts great every time, runs fast. Like I say, it has more above 4,000 RPM, but I don't take it above it. I rarely take it above 3,500 RPM, to be totally truthful with you. So this is more of a back road cruiser than an interstate. Although if you look back, I'll link a video here where I do take it out on the interstate and show you that it can run with the modern stuff if it wants to. And this truck still has the stock OEM 3-speed, 3 on the tree, and 4 torque tube drive shaft, and the 411 rear gear. So this is not really designed to run on the interstate. I've actually got a toy that'll run on interstates if I want to, so I have no desire to change this out to anything other than what it is. I like having the additional horsepower in the engine. 54 engine is 5 years newer than the 49 that was in it, but it's period correct. So I feel okay with this, although I do have the 216 that maybe one day I'll rebuild it and put it back in. But I don't have any qualms about running a 54 235 in this truck and still claiming it's close to original. So anyway, let me see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The flywheel, it's the 235's flywheel and the larger clutch. I decided I better run that since I am pumping out not double the horsepower, but quite a bit more than what the stock 216 did. And otherwise, it's been really good. 12 volts, I upgraded it to 12 volts. I upgraded the truck to 12 volts. So all the bulbs have been changed. Most of the gauges, the oil pressure gauge and the water temp gauge, both are mechanical, so voltage didn't matter to them. The ammeter works fine on 12 volt without any modification and with an alternator. And the gas gauge, I did have to put a resistor on the power lead going to it, which most of these aftermarket providers provide. And I almost think the gas gauge is reading more accurate now than it did when it was straight 6 volt. I did upgrade the heater to a deluxe heater. I'm almost done with the full installation of it. A member provided me with a Ranco valve that I need to rebuild, and I will be installing it. But I need to also get the linkage from the Ranco valve to the dash, the heat select valve. And once I get all that, then I'll install it. But right now I've got a setup over here where I've got a push-pull that allows the hot water to circulate to the heater core. And the fan motor is 12 volts, so I'm fine on that. Still running the vacuum wipers. You know, I don't take this out. If it's raining or snowing, I don't take it out. But if I'm caught out in it, they work good enough to get me home. So, or to continue my cruise. So I have no qualms running it. There's a skill with working with vacuum wipers. So anyway, let me see. I think that's about it. I run 50-50 antifreeze, no problem. Right now I'm running straight 30 weight oil. I broke it in with Brad Penn break-in oil, which had high levels of ZDDP. And I'm running straight Rotella 30 weight. I may be going to 15. If my oil change comes up here in the middle of winter, I will go to 1540 to see how it does, because I'm thinking about going to 1540 in pretty much all my tractors, and even my vet perhaps too. I'm running a 1030 in it, and I may go to the 1540, but that's a whole nother thing. But I may go to 1540 in this too. Anyway, now this when this engine was new, and whatever the oil formulations were back in those days, which was really non-detergent, they recommended for most temps 20 weight straight weight. So anyway, I broke it in with 30, and like I said, I have no qualms. I don't know why I'm going. The only reason why I'm going to consider 1540 is because I'm changing my whole fleet to it, except for my 2 POVs. They'll stand with synthetic, but that's a whole other thing too. But anyway, 6-volt horn and everything works great. Still got the stock hook brakes. So anyway, so after 7,000 miles and what, a year and a half, 5 stars is what I'm giving this. Now it cost a pretty good penny to rebuild this engine and put it in. I could have went with a small block Chevy or a LS upgrade, which would have ran into a considerable amount of more expense. But I want to keep this period correct. It's my desire that my grandsons will be able to drive a 49 truck just like a 49 truck drove. You know what I mean? So anyway, and I enjoy driving it like that. Like I say, I got a toy to zip around in if I want to. This is my cruiser, and I want it to remain that way. So anyway, 5 stars. I recommend, if you have a tired 216, that a 235 or even a 261 is an excellent upgrade. Unless you want to run interstates. But then if you want to run interstates, you can change out the rears to 355, the gears, and then there you go. You've got the horsepower in the engine, you've got the gearing in the rear. So there you go. So 5 stars. If you're sitting at a point to where you don't know how you want to go, well, the first thought on when you want to do a power upgrade is, do you want to stay period correct? Do you want to keep your costs down? Or do you want the need for speed? If you have the need for speed, you're going to spend some money because you're going to have to go with a modern powertrain. If you want to run interstates, you can go with a 235 or a 261 and a rear end gear upgrade to 355, and you can run the interstates. If you just got a tired engine and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, but you want to drive your old truck, and you don't want, like I say, you don't want to spend a whole lot on it, but you want to drive it, try to find you a good 235 or 261 out there, and there you go. That's all you got to do. A lot of people, they'll have that need for speed, and they'll pull those good stove bolt engines out just so they can put them in LS or a small block Chevy in there, or even a more modern 230, 250 6-cylinder, and have a good engine just sitting around collecting dust. If you can find that, get a good price on it, there you go. Rebuilding them is not like anything. You're going to. I did all the labor myself, but I did have to farm out the machine work, and all the machine work. I'll probably have about $600 in just the machine work, and that's not counting the parts that I had to, the brand new parts that I had to put in it, and I have no price put on my labor. So anyway, you'll run into some considerable expense, but if you want to drive it and you want it to last a long time, you might be like me and think it's worth it. To me, it's worth it. All of how you want to do it. So anyway, hope you found this review helpful, and I guess I'm gonna cut it off at there. If you have any questions, post them down there in the comments. I'll be glad to answer them. I'll put my email in the description. You can email me, for a lot of people do, and we can talk about that. Talk about issues or problems, or just talk about what your old stove boat's doing, and I'd be fine too. So anyway, so I hope everything's going good with you and yours. Everything's going good here. Can't complain. Won't do me no good to complain anyway. Just take care of the business. So anyway, hope to see you around on the next one. Listen.